and Blake Fisher have both been diagnosed with ADD. They take Ritalin. 10-year-old Blake says the drug helps him focus and feel safe.
Very secure.
It slows him down to immediate speed, to where he can go ahead and focus on one thing and not be distracted by everything else in the room.
When they come home from school and I start seeing the Ritalin wearing off in the afternoons, it's more they're wanting to be out playing, doing things, and if I try and direct them towards like homework or tasks at that point in time, forget it. It's going to be, I'm going to be pulling my hair out, they're going to be pulling their hair out, and it just doesn't work.
Kids with ADD have trouble sitting still and concentrating. Ritalin makes them attentive and focused.
The theory is that there's a part of the brain that has to do with attention span that inside the brain is understimulated, is too quiet. And when the stimulant is given, it gets that chemical working properly in that part of the brain, and now the child can focus and attend without being fidgety and restless.
More and more children are being prescribed drugs to help them calm down, focus, and cheer up. In fact, the number of children given Ritalin has doubled in just the last 6 years. Prescriptions for kids on the antidepressant Prozac are also on the rise. Doctors are even giving it to teenage girls to treat PMS. Critics charge that America's children are taking too many drugs.
There's not a night that I don't go to bed. I want to wake up in the morning and say that Kenny's going to be well.
Susan Rogers knows firsthand the dangers of prescription drugs. Her son Kenny took Ritalin for 9 years to control his ADD. Susan says he stopped taking the drug after doctors noticed there was too much of it in his system. Trying to find a replacement for Ritalin, Kenny's doctors prescribed other drugs, but he had a near fatal reaction to one of them.
Kind of glitched, made my jaw go like right.
Do you remember that day?
It was horrible. I'm like, I can't even talk right.
The nurse said that when we got there, probably another 10 minutes, and he would have suffocated because he'd either swallowed his tongue and died.
Kenny is now in junior high school here in Dallas, Texas. Sometimes he has trouble focusing in class, but after nearly losing him to a drug overload, his mom says she will work with his attention deficit disorder in other ways. He's off drugs. How is he doing?
Academically, Kenny is still doing very well, which is what we have maintained all along, that Kenny can learn if you teach him in the ways that he learns.
Not all ADD kids may need medication. It depends on how the ADD is affecting their life.
While experts say some children definitely can benefit from Ritalin, for others it is being used as a quick fix for busy parents and teachers with too many kids in class.
Medicine makes it easy.
If the people who were saying these things lived with a child like ours, they wouldn't feel quite as strongly that you shouldn't ever put a child on drugs.
Michelle Williams runs the local chapter of CHAD, a support group for parents of ADD kids. She also has 2 children suffering from it. She says claims of ADD being a trendy diagnosis are unfounded.
There is more publicity. People are more readily able to get the information. And what happens when you get the information is that people begin getting the diagnosis. And that doesn't make it a fad. That doesn't make it a trend.
But there are reasons parents should think hard before putting their kids on Ritalin. For instance, recent studies found it may cause cancer. While the FDA says it still believes Ritalin is a safe drug, it feels that parents should have this new information. On special assignment, I'm Marilyn Mitzel, 7 News.
I don't like it at all. I never did. I never will.
Mark Fisher doesn't beat around the bush when it comes to his kids and medication. He wishes sons, Mark and Blake, didn't take Ritalin, even though it helps control their attention deficit disorder.
Right now they're taking the medication because basically the doctor thinks it's in their best interest, the psychologist thinks it's in their best interest, and the school thinks it's in their best interest.
To date, more than 6 million children are written psychiatric drug prescriptions every year. Experts say while there's no question drug treatment can vastly improve the lives of children suffering from depression, panic disorder, and ADD, many wonder if too many kids are on drugs for the wrong reasons.
Unfortunately, a lot of children get diagnosed after visiting a doctor for a couple of minutes and are given a prescription, and they may have something other than attention deficit that needs to be addressed.
Parents are often told medication is the the only answer. But some determined parents like Ginny Dutton aren't satisfied until they find an alternative that works.
What a blessing. This is miracle stuff here.
Ginny and her daughter, 11-year-old Phoebe, travel from Tampa to South Florida every week so Phoebe can undergo biofeedback to help with her attention deficit disorder. Phoebe had been on Ritalin for years when her mother finally said, enough is enough.
I think it was instinct and kind of that mother thing that you have. I didn't want her to be dependent on that, and I knew that it wasn't doing everything that it could do. It was kind of putting a Band-Aid over it, and we could get through school. But we still weren't addressing the issue. We were covering it up.
Every time you do that, Phoebe, you're going to get a point, okay?
New research finds that the brains of kids with ADD are different. A recent study found that there is less activity in the areas of the brain that control attention and concentration. During biofeedback, Phoebe is taught how to force her brain to behave differently.
And that's the key to biofeedback, and then she directly intervenes to change and self-regulate her own brain physiology.
It's the one alternative that we know which has very long-lasting effects and really allows a child to get very, very close to normalizing.
I just want to be normal. That's all I've wanted to be for 8 years since I discovered I was hyperactive and everything. I only wanted to be normal.
We just felt like you can't be endangering a child's life like that. When you get that severe of a reaction and you're bounced that fast from one drug to another after, you know, the Ritalin had worked for so long, we just said enough.
Susan Rogers' son Kenny nearly died from taking medication for his ADD. He suffered a drug overload after being on Ritalin since the age of 3. When doctors put him on a replacement drug, he had a severe reaction. He was only 10 years old. That's when Susan convinced school officials in Dallas to create a special class for Kenny designed for the ADD child. Students are given more time for tests, instructions are repeated, and there's a more hands-on approach to learning.
I think we as parents need to realize that medication is a last resort, not a first resort.
Before putting children on medication for ADD, parents must make sure their child has been properly diagnosed. That requires extensive psychological testing. With all the publicity about ADD, critics fear many kids are being labeled hyperactive when they're not. It's estimated that only 5% of America's children truly suffer from ADD. On special assignment, I'm Marilyn Mitzel, 7 News.